report that I saw. So this is something that issuers are kind of enamored with. And so I don't think that it was that Neighborly necessarily didn't have the right idea, because, when you talk to city finance folks, this is something they're really passionate about.
Well, and that's what I wanted to ask, right? I mean, how much of this was a failed concept and how much of this was failed execution? Hint, going to Maui while they're trying to underwrite a deal.
I think it might be a little bit of both. So one of the examples that I think is really telling in the story, Loveland, Colorado was trying to do a bond deal for a broadband project, and that's kind of what Neighborly's focused on now. And they were very dead set on, wanting to do mini bonds. And, the CFO talked about how they had, reserved a portion of the sale for Neighborly, and they were really excited about it, and residents were really jazzed about it. But ultimately, Neighborly had started working on this investing platform and some other ideas. And, they eventually decided that they couldn't pursue the bond sale, even after submitting a response to a request for proposals from Loveland. I think that's really telling, is that, there was interest from the issuer side, but, there were other distractions that they had.
Are there any other players in the marketplace that are trying to do what Neighborly was doing? It seems like a fairly easy thing to fix, which is if there is demand for smaller denominations and municipal bonds, it sounds like a pretty easy fix for somebody.
Yeah, I think, the thing is that larger banks, they could do the mini bonds and also do the larger traditional bond sales. I don't necessarily think that if another company wanted to build their business model around mini bonds, we have data that shows that about 2% of sales last year were sold with minimum increments of less than $5,000. So that just gives you a sense of the scale of this market. We've even seen traditional banks exit munis or combine with other banks, just because it's a hard industry if you're not Bank of America or Morgan Stanley. This isn't an industry necessarily that's very easy to disrupt, for better or worse.
Is this essentially crowdsourcing in Muniland?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess that the question is, how much demand is there on the investor side for people who actually want to invest in, say, $100 increments?
I think it's a mixed bag. It might depend where you are. So the city of Denver has been selling mini bonds since like the 1990s. And that's the population in Denver seems very civic minded, and, they've had a lot of successes with that platform. There was a study that we cited in the story that, mini bonds are actually more expensive for Denver than their traditional bond sales. But for cities, it's a matter of they want the citizen engagement with projects, and they like when retail buys their bonds. That's something that they use as a point of pride. Maybe it's more of a PR thing, but cities really like it, and that's kind of it. But for other communities, it might be really hard to find enough buyers to make the economics make sense.
Amanda Albright, thank you so much for joining us. Amanda Albright, municipal bond reporter for Bloomberg News, with this story that is just a great read. I highly recommend it. It talks about how they underwrote a $2 million debt sale, the employees of this company, and then they did what people do, which is go to Maui to celebrate, sure. Yeah. Even though they had other business to do, and then they talked about touchy-feely things, and the founder got defensive. It's really quite an awesome read.
Well, I like that Ashton Kutcher is one of the early investors.
There's so much in this. I mean, honestly, it's an important issue to talk about in terms of how do you engage people in a community in the projects and the needs that the municipalities face, right? Which is the concept of getting smaller investment increments involved. At the same time, there's a lot of fun intrigue in this particular story. Yeah. Right now, looking at markets, we are seeing a rally as we do get a sense that perhaps Brexit will be not solved, but at least get a little bit more clear in terms of what the outcome will be. Although NASDAQ well off its earlier highs, up just 0.3%. The S&P up similarly. We're seeing a little bit of a sell-off in bonds, but people still kind of reserving judgment as they wait for a more definitive outcome. This is Bloomberg Markets.
Carl's All Change Casserole.
So, Chloe walks in from school, tears all over her face.
Daddy,
she says,
I don't want to eat animals anymore.
I blooming love my meat, but not as much as I love my little girl. That's why we've made some changes to our old favourite, sausage casserole. Now with meat-free Cumberlands, but still with my magic touch, a dollop of mango chutney. just as tasty as it used to be.
Better, actually.
Make your own with the new Tesco Plant Chef range. Food Love Stories. Brought to you by Tesco. How can I help you?
Just a latte, please.
Grande. Guatemalan bean.
Oh.
Hazelnut syrup.
Wow.
Whipped cream.
All right.
That's $5.25, please.
Oh.
You can't always control what you spend, but you can save as you spend with Save the Change. When you use your Lloyds Bank debit card, we'll round up the amount to the next pound and transfer the difference to your nominated Lloyds Bank savings account. Feel in control every day with our mobile banking app. Lloyds Bank, by your side. T's and C's apply.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the checkerboard. But he stays on his feet and scores.
What's happening in college football this week? This Saturday, undefeated Penn State will have the whiteout in full effect as they host Harbaugh and the Wolverines. Michigan at Penn State at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Just search college to listen today.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn. At home or on the go, stay up to date on the latest news and political trends with Fox's full lineup of shows. Plus, when news breaks, Fox has you covered with live updates and expert analysis on the biggest developing stories. Listen to Fox News Talk anytime on TuneIn.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations. You'll also get live commercial-free news, plus live play-by-play games from NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Hey NFL fans, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you have unlimited access to every team and every game in the league. Listen live as it happens or on demand. Anytime, anywhere. All season long. Search NFL today.
Financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney.
Where's your views on the municipal bond landscape?
The market does not like uncertainty, does not react well to uncertainty.
There's a whole lot of optimism around the valuation of Uber.
What is Ford saying about the self-driving car?
Breaking market news and insight from Bloomberg experts.
Maybe we're getting hooked on debt and low interest rates.
The black hole called power could be a bigger black hole.
A toxic brew of slower revenue growth.
There is now this belief that Amazon maybe can do anything.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Coming up, we'll take a look at President Trump coming under increasing fire from allies as the GOP blasts his Syria policy. Plus, we'll take a look at the economic outlook. Is there a recession for the U.S. in 2020? We'll take a look. First, let's go to John Tucker of Bloomberg News for a Bloomberg Business Flash. John.
Yeah, Paul, all of the major indices, they are higher, but off the best levels of the session. If we look at the broader index of the S&P 500, of the 11 industry groups in the S&P 500, 9 are higher now, 2 are lower. That includes utilities as well as information technology. The technology stocks not being helped by Microsoft. That's down about 0.6% right now. But still, overall, a decent string of earnings. Netflix international performance, that impressed analysts. Morgan Stanley's earnings showing fixed income was a standout performer, and that drove the biggest outperformance in the trading revenue among the major banks. Alcoa shares, they are headed higher as investors welcome the company's plans to get leaner by selling assets to weather a market rout. American factory output faltering. Let's get more in this report from Bloomberg's Benny Del Giudice.
The Federal Reserve reports factory output dropped in September by the most in 5 months, down 0.5%. Blame it on multiple hardships: the General Motors strike, slowing global growth, and White House tariffs. Production of autos, primary metals, machinery, and plastics all fell in September. Total industrial output, including mines and utilities, also declined. Benny Del Giudice, Bloomberg Radio.
S&P 500 right now dropping below 3,000 right now, 29.96. Still up about 7 points, up 0.2%. The Dow's up has just turned negative, down 1 point at 57,000. Nasdaq Composite Index 15 points higher. That's up 0.2% at 81.39. 10-year yield at 175. We check the markets for you every 15 minutes during the trading day right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker, and that is your Bloomberg Business Flash.
John Tucker, thank you so much. Well, we are looking at a very strong direction in the Russell 2000. Dave Wilson, Bloomberg Stocks Editor, joining us here in our interactive broker studios to give us some details.
Strong enough for sure, Lisa. I mean, especially when you look at smaller companies relative to larger ones. The Russell 2000 index is up 0.7%, and the S&P 500 is only higher by 0.2%. The Russell's biggest gain belongs to Limelight Networks, whose ticker is LLNW. The operator of a network for delivering web pages has risen almost 24.5%. Third quarter sales beat analyst average estimate in a Bloomberg survey. Makers of opioid painkillers are higher after the New York Times reported that the industry is nearing a $50 billion settlement of lawsuits. Endo International, ticker ENDP, has climbed 17%. Mallinckrodt, ticker MNK, has added more than 12%. It's actually a second day of gains for both stocks. And Assembly Biosciences, ticker ASMB, has risen 21%. The drug developer is up for a second day after releasing favorable study results on a proposed treatment for hepatitis B. Now, the biggest drop in Russell, at least one of them, belongs to Syros Pharmaceuticals, ticker SYRS. The drug developer has lost almost 28.5% after ending work on a proposed cancer treatment. And Insteel Industries, ticker IIIN, has dropped about 7.5%. The maker of steel reinforcing wire ended fiscal 2019 with its first quarterly loss in about 9 years.
Bloomberg Stocks Editor Dave Wilson, thank you so much. Well, President Trump is coming under some widespread criticism for his Syria policy, and it's not just from Democrats this time. Right now, some Republicans are also challenging that policy. To get more, we welcome Stephen Dennis, Senate reporter for Bloomberg News, joins us on the phone from Washington, D.C. So, Stephen, give us the latest on how this whole Syria policy is playing out for President Trump in Washington.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically overwhelming bipartisan opposition to his decision to basically let Turkey invade without us taking any real steps to prevent them. We're starting to put in place some sanctions, and of course, Mike Pence was sent over there to talk to the Turkish president. But basically, you have a lot of Republican leaders over here who are aghast that the Kurds who fought alongside us to help defeat ISIS are being basically left to fend for themselves as the Russians and Syria forces and Turkish forces close in on them. And so, yesterday in the House, there was an overwhelming vote. Only 60 Republicans stood with the president against this resolution that effectively rebuked him for not standing up for the Kurds. And now in the Senate, Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, says he wants an even stronger resolution on Syria. So Chuck Schumer, the Democratic leader, wants to have action today on a resolution. So we'll see what ends up happening. In the meantime, it's sort of a fluid situation on sanctions. The House Foreign Affairs Committee is looking at sanctions, and now we have on the Senate side today Chris Van Hollen, Democrat, and Lindsey Graham, Republican, sometimes chief ally of the president, but on this, his chief opponent, will be introducing sanctions later today, much stiffer than what the president has been putting forward so far.
So House Speaker Nancy Pelosi currently talking, actually, and yesterday she made some news when she talked about the meeting with President Trump, with House leaders, with congressional leaders about the Syria issue, saying that President Trump had a, quote, meltdown. Do we have a sense of, first of all, whether that's accurate, but second of all, what the broader implications are of the pushback that the president is getting from Republicans in Congress?
Yeah, there definitely was a dust-up. Pelosi basically accused the president on issues including Ukraine and Syria and other issues as well, saying that all roads with you lead to Putin. and basically are helping out the Russians and Russian foreign policy. And the president wasn't happy and called her a third-grade politician, whatever that means. And at some point, the name-calling got to be so much that Schumer, Steny Hoyer, and Pelosi decided to get up and leave. This is not the first meeting where one side has gotten up and left. It was months ago when the president sort of stormed out of a meeting that he had called on infrastructure, and he was upset with investigations into him. And of course, now the House is poised to impeach him in the coming months. So this is not that big of a surprise that they are at each other's throats, if you will. There is one thing I'm watching is whether Republican angst and upset over Syria impacts the impeachment calculus over here in the Senate. Some Senate Republicans and Democrats I've talked to don't see it affecting it right now. But, if you actually get to a point where some Senate Republicans are considering voting to convict the president, which right now none of them are really there, this could just be one more feather on the scale, because Mike Pence is seen as somebody who would have had a different foreign policy in this case.
So, Stephen, just quickly, what are next moves here?
I think the next big decision point is what does Mitch McConnell do on this sanctions package? Does he want to bring something real with teeth to the floor that would defy the president? It's one thing to have a non-binding resolution, which he's done before. It's another thing to actually start having Congress take over some big pieces of foreign policy. That's something that he's going to be probably fairly reluctant to do, but he's getting a lot of pressure from Republicans who want to do something to push back on what they see happening over there with our allies getting killed.
Stephen Dennis, thank you so much for spending time. I know you've got a very busy schedule. Stephen Dennis, Senate reporter for Bloomberg News, joining us from Washington, D.C. Nancy Pelosi, as we said earlier, House Speaker, is currently speaking. And one thing that she's talking about is the U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade deal. She's saying that it is still at work and that actually there are signs that both the White House and Democrats are upbeat about the USMCA, despite the impeachment issues, despite some of the other trade tensions. So that sort of in the front and center, as well as the drama and name calling. Right now, let's head over to our 99.1 studios in Washington, D.C. Nathan Hager there with world and national headlines. Nathan.
And also happening on Capitol Hill this morning, Lisa, House impeachment investigators are behind closed doors hearing a deposition from Gordon Sondland. He's the Trump fundraiser turned European Union ambassador who texted, "Call me," when a State Department official asked him whether military aid to Ukraine was contingent on an investigation of Joe and Hunter Biden. Bloomberg News got a copy of Sondland's opening statement. It says he consulted with President Trump before telling that official there was no quid pro quo. Joe Biden is struggling to regain his lead in the polls in the 2020 Democratic presidential race and fend off attacks from the president. Bloomberg's Amy Morris reports Biden may be too short on cash to do either as well as he'd like.
Federal Election Commission filings show the former vice president spent $17.7 million in the third quarter, nearly $2 million more than he raised. Deficit spending is unusual for a major candidate at this point in an election cycle, putting Biden behind Senators Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. The shortfall also puts Biden at a serious disadvantage when it comes to competing with his better-funded rivals in advertising and staff on the ground. In Washington, I'm Amy Morris, Bloomberg Radio.
Jury selection has resumed in a federal trial on the toll of opioids, even as major drug distributors and manufacturers press for a settlement for that lawsuit and more than 2,000 others. For the second day in a row, the judge overseeing the case in Cleveland denied requests from defense lawyers to delay the trial and forged ahead with jury selection. Arguments are scheduled to start on Monday. Global news, 24 hours a day on air, and at TikTok on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. This is Bloomberg.
Full breakfast, cup of coffee, whatever you have in the morning, have it at daybreak.
What's the outlook for the pound if there is another election?
Nathan Hager.
The U.S. could still delay those tariffs?
And Karen Moscow.
It is the fifth major industry player to make some sort of zero commission offer.
Bloomberg Daybreak.
Bloomberg has more from Hong Kong.
Weekdays at 5 a.m. Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Listen, as a hiring manager, I've got to tell you, the best job candidate isn't always the typical candidate. Sometimes they're a grad of life.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
Sometimes the best candidates aren't the ones you're used to.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
History is watching. How will today's leaders shape this century's destiny? We live in an age of transformation. Commerce is shifting from sea lanes to fiber optic cables. Street markets have migrated to the cloud. Tomorrow's machines may be more intelligent than humans. This November, a community of leaders will gather in Beijing at the Bloomberg New Economy Forum to address the forces upending the global economy, seek solutions to our most pressing challenges, and chart the path to a new economy. Visit neweconomyforum.com to learn more.
Imagine being fired because of who you love. Imagine being denied medical treatment because of who you marry. Imagine being evicted because of who you are. Millions of Americans don't have to imagine this. They have to live it. Because in 31 states, it's legal to discriminate against LGBT people. Get the facts at beyondido.org. Brought to you by the Gill Foundation and the Ad Council.
1 in 10 Londoners surveyed said they'll give more to charity in the next 12 months. Are you one of them? At CAF, we help generous people like you support their favourite charities by making giving simple. And we provide charities with the tools they need to perform at their best. So together, we can make a bigger difference for our communities. We're a charity and a champion for better giving. We are CAF, and we make giving count. Visit cafonline.org to find out more.
Parents, it's up to half price on all toys at Sainsbury's right now, so you can keep us occupied this half term and even stock up for Christmas. The Sainsbury's up to half price toy sale ends 22nd of October.
Subject to availability at selected Sainsbury's stores, excluding Centrals and Locals, not available online. Valid 16th to 22nd of October.
I tell you what used to be fair, lunch. You used to walk past pubs and just see people laughing and merriment. What happened to those cheery days? I tell you what happened to them. It's been replaced by a pint glass sitting by a computer full of condiments, plastic cutlery, and a pair of chopsticks you use for fishing the noodles out your keyboard. It's just not fair.
At TalkTalk, fairness is important. That's why, unlike some other providers, we offer fixed price plans on our fibre broadband for the entire length of your contract. Search TalkTalk Fibre. Fairer broadband for everyone.
Right now, the future is being written by people like you. Creative thinkers, tech lovers, problem solvers. Are you going to stand by and watch? Well, show the world what you've got. Join others around the UK on an EY degree apprenticeship in digital and technology. And earn a salary working with exciting businesses while studying towards a degree. Don't let the future pass you by. Get involved. For more information and to apply, search EY Digital Apprentice.
It's time to do a bit of Debenhams with up to 30% off our favourite coats, knitwear and boots for the whole family and 20% off throughout home. Shop now in-store and at debenhams.com.
Fly with Cathay Pacific to over 70 destinations across Asia and Australia and move beyond the familiar. State-of-the-art cabins, world-class entertainment and award-winning service, making sure you arrive ready to make the most of whatever lies ahead. Whether it's the stunning coastlines of Sydney, the secluded waterfalls of Bali, or the baroque splendor of Manila. Book now at cathaypacific.com. Cathay Pacific. Move beyond.
When it comes to keeping your small business valuable information safe, Dell Small Business Technology Advisors can recommend tailored security solutions, like computers with Intel Core processors, servers, storage, networking, plus industry-leading monitors and software. Running your own small business is a big challenge, but with the right partner, it's a lot easier. To speak with an advisor today, call 0800 085 4878. That's 0800 085 4878.
Oh, look who's home. Long time no see. You haven't changed a bit. Come on in. Welcome back.
With genuine BMW expertise, parts, and a convenient range of options to suit you, when it comes to caring for your BMW, there's no place like home. Book your BMW service online 24/7. T's and C's apply, subject to availability, participating retailers only.
Now, let's take a look at you. Should we go halves?
I'll get this. Let me just get my card. Which was in my pocket.
You can't control awkward first dates. But if you temporarily misplace your debit card, you can freeze and unfreeze it on our mobile banking app. Feel in control every day. Lloyds Bank, by your side. You can only freeze some transaction types. T's and C's apply.
Headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm John Tucker in the Bloomberg Newsroom with this Bloomberg Business Flash. This on a day when the major averages are all higher. They are off the best levels of the session for the broader market, the S&P 500, right at 3,000 right now. And of the 11 industry groups in the broader market, just 2 are lower. There'd be utilities and technology right now. S&P 500, again, up 11 points at 3,000. That's a rise of 0.4%. Dow Jones Industrial Average up 39 points. That's up 0.2%. We're at 27,041. NASDAQ Composite Index 28 points higher at right now 8,152. Among the most actively traded stocks, shares of Netflix after a earnings report that impressed analysts. Netflix rising the most since January after booming overseas sales. Right now up 4.75%. 10-year yield in the U.S. at 175 as the price declines by 3/32. And NYMEX crude is lower. That's down 7 cents a barrel, 53.30. We check the markets for you every 15 minutes during the trading day right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker, and that is your Bloomberg Business Flash.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
There is a question sort of baked into markets this year as equities outperform pretty much everything, particularly alternative investments. What happens to all of those wealthy individuals, pensions, foundations that piled into private equity, commercial real estate, etc., only to underperform and pay higher fees? Joining us now, Patrick Healy. He's founder and president of Caliber Financial Partners based in New Jersey. And Patrick deals particularly, you deal with clients, high net worth individuals who are looking to invest in alternatives, although you also do have a segment that invests in the broader market. How have you seen their attitudes shift over the year due to the underperformance of the alternatives?
So, sure. I will say that the patience tends to wear thin a little bit, especially when they're talking to colleagues or neighbors of theirs where they are predominantly invested in the equity markets. And clearly, we've been through a significant bull market. How much longer it can go on remains to be seen. I think we're going to see that tested next year in the election cycle. But I try to remind clients that it's a long-term investment. We're not measuring over a 1 or 2 year cycle, but you have to really believe in the investment thesis over the long term, and it helps you to manage volatility and risk a lot better by incorporating non-correlated assets into an overall portfolio design.
So we've seen just over the last week some of the big endowments, university endowments report their results, and certainly lower results than they've seen in years past. One of the reasons is because of the performance or underperformance of their alternatives. What do you make of that news?
So sure, whenever you're in a period where the equity markets have basically more than tripled off the 2009 lows, you're going to underperform when you have a non-correlated asset portfolio. But if you stretch out that performance data over longer than, I'd say, the last decade, but over 20 years, over 30 years, I think the evidence is pretty compelling that when you incorporate alternative investments into an overall portfolio, it will outperform, obviously taking into account fees as well.
So as you decide how to create a portfolio of alternative investments for your clients, what do you find yourself leaning more toward these days?
So some of it is availability, right? And I work with a broker-dealer, and so I have a platform that's made available to me through that broker-dealer. A lot of what I've seen in terms of available products is more tailored to the commercial real estate side. I think there are a lot of managers and sponsors out there that put out product that is catered towards retail investors. We've seen some evidence of private equity entering the space, but it's been a challenge historically just to satisfy fairly high minimum investments. We're seeing some shift now towards private equity firms trying to tailor products more for retail investors, sort of in a pooled asset format that allows them to get exposure to the space at a lower minimum. And so that's something that I am constantly doing due diligence on.
If you look into your crystal ball, in 10 years, do you think that retail investors will have very easy paths into private equity and real estate?
So I think they already have a fairly easy path into real estate. There are, again, an abundance of product and portfolios out there that allow you to tap in at a fairly low minimum. On the private equity side, it remains to be seen. We're really kind of in the early stages of seeing product be tailored to retail investors. I think a lot of that has to do with a shift away from defined benefit plans to defined contribution plans, and a lot of institutional managers wanting to tap into that growing market. Remains to be seen, though, on the private equity side, how good those products are. There's sort of a bifurcation between institutional investors that can satisfy a higher minimum and getting better quality product, as opposed to retail that may come in at a lower minimum, but they may not be getting the same exposure to investments and portfolios, and I'm hopeful that will change.
So, Patrick, for your typical high net worth client, what do you think is a reasonable allocation to alternatives versus stocks and bonds and so on?
Right. So I tend to, depending on the client's goals and income needs and so on, I try to put anywhere from 20 to 30% of a overall portfolio into a basket of alternative investments: commercial real estate, oil and gas, private equity, private debt. I will look at each individual program out there and see if it fits within what the client's trying to do. I manage equities as well, and so the level or percentage of equities somewhat is dependent on where we are in the market cycle as well.
Just real quickly here, you were saying that you screen your clients to make sure that they're going to work with you well. Can you tell us why?
So it's amazing. Investor psychology at the retail level is such a sensitive topic, and something that really can dictate the outcome of how successful a client's portfolio does. If they're uncomfortable with risk or volatility, then I have to either spend a lot of time with them understanding how the equity markets work, why we buy certain securities and why we avoid certain securities. If I'm going to put them into alternative investments, there's a period of illiquidity. So sometimes the trade-off is away from volatility or market risk and more towards illiquidity risk. That is something that makes retail investors uncomfortable at times as well. Right. And so they have to really understand that, hey, you might be in this investment for 3, 5, 7 years. And if that's not something that you can sign up for, then we have to avoid that.
Yep. Patrick Healy, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you coming in here. Patrick Healy, founder and president of Caliber Financial Partners based in New Jersey, joining us here in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio, talking about high net worth individuals, retail investors, and the allocation of their portfolio to alternative investments. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Negotiators from the UK reached an agreement with officials in Brussels that could pave the way for Britain to finally break 46 years of ties with the European Union. That's giving a lift to stocks this morning. Netflix rising in trading, overseas growth has helped calm investor concerns about a slowdown at home. The company signed up over 6 million new users outside of the U.S. These international markets will be even more important as Netflix faces competition from the likes of Disney and Apple. Union Pacific suffered the steepest drop in carloads in 3 years, dragging third-quarter profit below analyst estimates, even as the railroad cut costs. Carloads fell 8.1%. That's the biggest decline since 2016, led down by autos, consumer goods, and coal. And Southwest Airlines moved the return of the Boeing 737 MAX further into 2020, pulling it from the flight schedule through February 8th. Courtney Donahoe, Bloomberg Radio.
Hi, we're the Goo Goo Dolls. We're fortunate that our daughters have what they need to grow and learn. But that isn't the case for nearly 13 million kids in the U.S. that struggle with hunger.
Childhood hunger is a heartbreaking reality that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and provides it to families and children in need.
You can help kids in need in your community by visiting feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Join us in New York City on November 21st as Bloomberg Pursuits convenes the second annual The Year Ahead Luxury. Speakers include Jennifer Hyman, CEO Rent the Runway, Alessandro Bogliolo, CEO Tiffany & Company, Robert A.M. Stern, renowned architect. Supporting sponsor, Diamond Producers Association. Participating sponsor, St. Regis Hotels and Resorts. For more information, go to BloombergLive.com/TYA Luxury. Invitation code RADIO.
In-depth.
Look at that. A riveting quest. A glorious opportunity. A scratch card. Yet he remains unfazed by the challenge, wavering at nothing.
Miss, please keep it down. We're in the quiet area.
Sorry. Here we are. The moment of truth as he reaches the end of... Instant excitement with scratch cards from the National Lottery. Amazing starts here. Search Dream Big, Play Small. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
The B&Q 3-for-2 offer is now on, including an unmissable 3-for-2 on tiles and flooring, like real wood and laminate. So hurry to B&Q. You can do it when you're 3-for-2 it. Excludes cut-to-measure flooring, flooring accessories and underlay. Every third item per single transaction in descending price order free. Offer ends November 3rd. See DIY.com.
Can I have chemo at home?
It's only suitable for a couple of types of
cancer.
When you search one question about cancer, you end up with millions of results which contradict each other. For clear and uncomplicated information, come to Cancer Research UK. Visit us online or give us a call on 0808 800 40 40. Cancer Research UK. Together, we will beat cancer.
And to say happy birthday, we're giving you a pair of award-winning Silver Galaxy Buds.
But it's not my birthday till June.
No, but it's ours. 10 years ago, we launched our first Galaxy smartphone. And to celebrate, we're giving customers who purchase any Galaxy S10, Note 10 or A90 5G the chance to claim a pair of amazing wireless Galaxy Buds.
Wow, and I didn't get you anything.
Get the latest Samsung Galaxy smartphone now at your local O2 shop or o2.co.uk. Offer available on purchases made by the 23rd of October 2019 and claimed online within 30 days. T&Cs apply.
Hey, we know that Nature Valley nut butter cups are delicious anywhere. But why just sit in the kitchen eating them? When you could be here, chilling outside in the fresh air with a tasty treat. Oh, good night! Whole grain oats with a delicious real nut butter filling. Nature Valley nut butter cups. Get out more.
It's going to be a bit chilly today. And with the worst of winter yet to reach London, you don't want to come home to a broken boiler. We're with you. So that's why with British Gas Home Care, we've got your boiler covered 365 days a year. We have thousands of engineers on hand to help get your boiler up and running again, and all from just 46p a day. Buy selected home care products online by the 28th of October and get 1 month free. Search British Gas Home Care. Conditions apply. Prices vary by postcode.
Hi, this is Brian Weber, host of NFL First and Goal every Sunday, kicking off at 1 Eastern only on TuneIn Premium. Be sure to listen this Sunday for the ultimate football fan experience, featuring 7 hours of commercial-free coverage of every scoring play around the NFL.
Stuck in traffic during the big game? With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to your favorite NFL team on the go. No TV required. Even during rush hour, you won't miss a single touchdown. Listen to the NFL on TuneIn Premium today.
These are the top buzzing stories on TuneIn.
Michelle Pfeiffer gives advice to the new Catwoman, Zoe Kravitz.
Make sure, whilst designing the costume, they consider how you're going to go to the bathroom.
Okay. Tyler Perry on whether or not he's going to make another Medea movie.
I did the farewell tour, the last tour that I did, just to say thank you to all the fans. It was amazing. It was sold out all over the country. It's been a great run, and if she has something to say, who knows? She'll share it.
This Wheel of Fortune contestant mocks his rotten family.
Blair Davis, talk about your family.
I've been trapped in a loveless marriage for the last 12 years to an old battle axe named Kim. She cursed my life with 3 stepchildren, and I have 1 rotten grandson.
Yay! Those were the top stories that are buzzing on TuneIn.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington. Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1. To Boston, Bloomberg 106.1. To San Francisco, Bloomberg 960. To the country, Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Markets.
Coming up, we're going to be speaking to the Chief Executive Officer of WEX, which is a data payment and processing platform. We're also going to be talking about the recent turmoil in the IPO market and what that says about the state of some unicorns. Right now, though, let's head over to our own unicorn, John Tucker. John.
I guess that's a good thing, right?
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay. Not worth anywhere near a unicorn, though. The U.S. stocks, Lisa, pairing gains after approaching record highs. Disappointing results from IBM weighing on the Dow right now. Netflix's international performance, that has impressed analysts. That stock getting a boost today. S&P 500 right now hovering just below 3,000, up 8 points. That's up 0.3%. We're at 29.97. The Dow Jones Industrial Average 20 points higher. That's at 27,018. The Nasdaq Composite Index 21 points higher. That's up 0.3% at 81.45. Morgan Stanley, surprisingly good results. That put it among the 81% of companies this week that have reported an earnings beat. The bulk of this week's third quarter news, however, has come from only two sectors, industrials and the financials. Production at U.S. factories fell in September by the most in 5 months, depressed by the strike at General Motors, sluggish global demand, and the trade war. And U.S. new home construction in September, that pulled back from a 12-year high, though the key single-family category, that was stable. That signals the housing market in the U.S. is firming amid low mortgage rates and steady demand. Right now, the 10-year yield in the U.S. down to 174. The price is down to 132nd. And the right now, NYMEX crude is down 38 cents a barrel. That's down 0.7%. We're at 52.99 on West Texas. We check the markets for you every 15 minutes during the trading day right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker, and that is your Bloomberg Business Flash.
You're listening to Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
WEX Software, WEX Inc. Melissa Smith, President and CEO, joins us right now to talk about the electronic payments business. WEX is, you can find out on New York Stock Exchange, trading under the symbol WEX, about a $9 billion market cap. Melissa, thanks so much for joining us on the phone from Portland, Maine. I want to talk a little bit about WEX. What is kind of the key driver for your story right now? I know that about 2/3 of your revenue had historically been about the truck fleet fuel payments business, but I know you've been trying to diversify that. So tell us a little bit about what the current growth drivers are.
Sure. So we're a financial technology service provider, and as you talked about, one of the industries we're in is fleet. We're also in healthcare, travel, and accounts payable. And if you look at the growth, and I'll talk about healthcare just for a minute, if you have an HSA or an FSA or any type of tax-deferred account, we're the technology that sits behind that. And so one of the growth drivers for us in that business is the fact that you continue to see people moving to high-deductible healthcare plans that have HSA accounts associated with that. So as you see that movement, we continue to add accounts, and as healthcare costs keep changing, that's a place where we see continued growth in our business. It's a place that we've been paying a lot of focus over the last several years.
So your shares are up almost 50% year to date, so not too bad.
Doing something right.
Well, I hope you have stock options. I'm trying to figure out going forward what the barrier to entry is. What's the competitive landscape for you?
Yeah, in each of the industries we're in, so first of all, we operate at scale. We have about $80 billion worth of spend volume going through our business in our different verticals. So we have a scale. We use our own internal network. So think of that as relationships that we've developed ourselves and then through some of the networks. But really the two big barriers for us is that the technology is highly integrated into our customers and partners, and they're of all size. They're really large companies and really small companies. And what we do is uniquely solve problems that sit in a particular vertical, whether that's fleet or travel or healthcare.
So I know you have some pretty aggressive growth targets, 10 to 15% revenue growth, maybe a little bit more than that, maybe 15 to 20% on earnings. What are the businesses that are really going to drive you to that growth? Because as I look at the fleet business, that seems to be a slower growing business.
you if you look at the sleep